Could you please briefly describe your judicial philosophy?
Divide everything into what I see as three very distinct areas. The common law, which is the law that's been developed by judges over the centuries, the statutory law, which is what the legislature adopts, and the constitutional law, which we all know. Let me start with the common law. This is judge-made law, and it is law that is intended to really regulate conduct for the good of society. And that's where a judge has the most latitude. My philosophy, my attitude toward the common law is that stability in the law is important, and so you don't change the law unless you think that there's a real reason to, that the way the law is now progressing is bad and it requires a positive change. If it needs to be changed, I think we look to a lot of sources. I mean, we look to our culture, we look to history, we look to the development of the law, and the goal of judges in developing that area of the law, the common law, should be what is going to do the best thing in terms of achieving justice in this type of relationship. And what do I mean by that? I think of the job of judges in doing justice as healing relationships or creating right relationships. And so to me, the goal of a judge in developing the common law is to ask the question, what is going to be best for society? What is going to be best in terms of creating good relationships, positive relationships that are good for us, for our children, and our grandchildren? That to me is the common law. Let me turn to the statutory law, a law that the legislature has adopted. A judge's job is to follow the law that the legislature has adopted, to interpret it and apply it to the facts before us. It's not our job to take our own personal opinions and impose those on the case. A judge's job is to try to step aside from personal opinions and do what the legislature has directed. And the reason for that is obvious to all of us, and we learned it in high school civics. It is that we have separation of powers. It's the job of the legislature to adopt laws and the job of the judges to follow them. And it would be silly, really, to have a legislature if it was all up to the judges to decide what the law is. So I think the judge's job there is to follow the law. This, by the way, this is another contrast between me and Justice Sanders. He feels much more strongly than I do that a judge should follow his own opinions in interpreting the law. Third area, Constitution. The Constitution, of course, is the blueprint for our legal system, and it's up to judges to follow that and apply that and preserve the balance among the three branches of government and preserve that separation of powers. Now, since the court is the referee for the separation of powers, the court has to be very cautious in exercising that separation of powers and enforcing the separation of powers under the Constitution. And the court can't go too far in terms of imposing its views on the Constitution. The other important area of constitutional law is the relationship between government and the citizens. And of course, that's where our rights come from. And it's not where our rights come from, but that's where they're embodied. That's where they're specified. And it's very important that the court protect our rights and yet protect all of society and balance constitutional rights against the rights of all citizens as well.